Discover the incredible transformation that happened when my granddaughter called my gift cheap. David ran his fingers over the smooth surface of the handcrafted wooden box, a piece he had spent weeks perfecting. It was his 70th birthday, and as he placed the box into his granddaughter Emma's hands, he felt a wave of pride wash over him. It encapsulated decades of labor, love, and family history. Yet, her dismissive glance cut through him like a saw against wood. "It's cheap," she said, the words hanging between them metallic and harsh. A stifled breath lodged in his throat as disappointment clawed at his insides. He remembered his own childhood, how he forced himself to persevere through hardships, trading sweat for survival. Every splinter in that box mirrored the battle he fought against poverty, against a world that hadn't always valued craftsmanship like his own. Now, faced with Emma's contempt, he couldn't help but feel inadequate, like an artist forgotten in a gallery full of shiny objects. Did she really see nothing of worth in what he had created? With every passing second, the emotional distance between them felt like an abyss, one that he was slowly losing the desire to bridge. He yearned for her to understand that the value of his work wasn't tied to price tags or modern trends, but was rooted in legacy and love. Torn between the urge to educate her and the desire to shield his heart, David's resolve to confront the widening gap waned. Later, in silence, he invited Emma to his workshop, a sanctuary filled with memories. As she stepped inside, the familiar scent of sawdust and varnish enveloped them. He needed her to see the stories etched in the wood, to understand the layers beneath the surface. He hesitated, his mind racing, grappling with the weight of every unspoken word as he selected a piece to demonstrate, his hands trembling slightly. "Let me show you why that box means so much," he said, his voice barely a whisper. As he spoke of childhood struggles, of nights spent carving under dim light, he felt the walls closing in. Emma's eyes flickered with skepticism, yet a hint of curiosity began to stir. He explained how every scratch, every dent, represented not failure but triumph. Could she really grasp the dedication woven into each piece he created? As he unlocked the complexities, he noticed a shift in her demeanor. Still, doubt loomed in the corners, waiting to resurface. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As the workshop filled with tales of resilience, the emotional storm within him surged. David's heart tightened as he faced the possibility of failing to connect with the very essence of what he had hoped to pass down. He wondered if Emma could ever truly appreciate this legacy. A silence loomed heavy as the evening light dimmed, casting long shadows that matched the unspoken worries fluttering in David's chest. Would this moment deepen their connection or drive them further apart? The question echoed, intertwining with the wood shavings scattered around them, leaving both David and Emma caught in a tension they could neither escape nor understand fully. David stood amidst the scents of wood and varnish, a sanctuary that had been both his refuge and his battleground. The stories that clung to the walls seemed to murmur encouragements as Emma glanced at him, her brow slightly furrowed, and he sensed the ambivalence coursing through her. The shadows lengthening in the room mirrored not only the dwindling light, but the growing chasm between their understanding. "What do you think, Emma?" he asked, each word pronounced with a steadiness he didn't quite feel. A simple question, but one that felt monumental, laden with expectations. "I just don't get why you care so much about all this," she replied, her voice wavering between uncertainty and frustration. "Feels old." The sting of her words ignited both hurt and resolve within him. Old. It was a battle of context, a clash of values. To him, old spoke of tradition and endurance, while to her, it suggested irrelevance. "I know it looks different from what's popular today," he began, searching for the courage to articulate his beliefs. "But these pieces carry our family's story. They remind me of resilience and the fight to create something meaningful." Emma crossed her arms, her body language closed off. "But can't you find a way to make what you love appealing? Make it something people want? You could sell this stuff. Could be worth something." The observation cut deeper than she likely intended. His mind raced through decades of hard-won lessons about the market's fickleness, and how it often prioritized style over substance. And what if it were just about money? David pressed, testing her resolve. What would be left when the trends fade? The connection? Her expression softened for a fleeting moment, and in that uncertainty, David saw a glimmer of possibility. That fleeting moment fueled his determination. He would not give in. Instead, he would fight to nurture understanding. "Let me show you something," he said decisively, leading her to a shelf lined with various tools. Each had a purpose, each carried countless stories. He handed her a chisel, its handle worn by years of use. "This chisel helped me carve the first piece I sold. I can still feel the excitement coursing through me every time I've made something with it." A flicker of interest sparked in her eyes, and for the first time, he felt the tides of her perception shifting. "What did it feel like?" she asked, intrigued. "It was a mix of fear and hope," he admitted. Fear of failure, hope for acceptance. Each chip out of the wood felt like a small victory, a testament that I could create beauty from raw materials, just as I had created a life from challenges thrown at me. "I get that," she said, gripping the chisel tighter. "I mean, I struggle too, you know? School's hard." "Exactly. Even in your struggles, there's a kind of artistry. You're crafting your future with every choice you make. It takes time and patience, like woodworking." Her expression turned contemplative. "You really think that?" "I do," he nodded. "But to see that, you also need to appreciate the tools you have, what they can do, and the legacy they represent." There was a hesitation as she took a step back, and David felt the tension pulse again. Was this a breakthrough, or just a brief moment of understanding lost amidst doubt? "I'll think about it," she stammered, eyes darting back to the beautiful but flawed projects cluttering the space around them. David's heart sank as she turned towards the door, uncertainty echoing in the space between. He had hoped for acceptance, and yet there was still so much distance. If only they could dismantle the walls surrounding their perspectives and rebuild anew. But would Emma be willing to build alongside him? As she left, David stood alone, resolute yet restless. A spark of courage ignited within him. He wondered if perhaps the key to bridging their divide lay not just in stories, but in shared experiences. What project could they undertake together that would forge their paths closer? The question lingered in the air, thick with possibility. The moment of truth had not arrived yet, but the next steps loomed ahead, filled with both risk and hope. Would he find the strength to invite her into his world of craftsmanship and legacy? Or was it time to forge a new path that combined their visions? David's resolve to connect with Emma pulsated within him like a live wire. He stood alone in the workshop, the fading light casting deeper shadows that echoed his uncertainty. The prospect of a joint project swirled in his mind, but the specifics eluded him. What could he offer that would resonate with her? After a restless hour pacing the confines of the workshop, he found himself at a crossroads of thought. He could either retreat into his shell, nurturing the wounds of their earlier conversation, or seize the opportunity for collaboration. The choice was stark but clear. He needed to invite her into this world before it cramped him irreversibly. With renewed clarity, he set a plan in motion. The next morning, he would propose a building project, a small table that they could design together. It would be a physical manifestation of their cooperation, an object that anchored their distinct philosophies. He imagined the vibrant exchange of ideas, the laughter that could rise from collaborative effort. He would guide her as she learned, and in return perhaps she would challenge him to breathe new life into his methods. As dawn broke, David felt the latent energy rising within him. He immersed himself in sketches, ideas brimming like the morning sun spilling through the small window. The design became a canvas for the merging of visions, featuring traditional elements with a contemporary flair. When Emma finally stepped into the workshop, he was anxiously awaiting her arrival. She looked tentative, her brows knitting as she scanned the room. David could sense the guardedness still clinging to her, like a veil. "I was thinking," he started, measuring his words with intent. "What if we built something together? A table?" Her eyes brightened momentarily, but shadows flitted across her face. "A table?" "Yeah," he affirmed, his voice steady. "We could plan it out, design it your way, and try to weave in some of the family tradition." She hesitated, skepticism flickering on her face. "I don't know, David. This isn't what I do. What if I mess it up?" Her reluctance stung, but it also ignited his determination. You won't mess it up, he insisted, his tone firm but encouraging. Mistakes are part of the process. Each mark or chip is simply a step toward what it could become. That's what crafting is about. It's all part of the journey. Okay, but what if it ends up looking like just a bunch of wood glued together? She countered, her voice quivering with doubt. Then it's a unique piece carved by you and me. We'll document the whole process. I want this to be about more than just the finished piece. It's about learning and risk. Emma folded her arms again, contemplating his proposition. David watched the gears in her mind turn, his heart racing. What if we try for a modern design? She offered slowly, her enthusiasm slightly resurfacing. Something sleek but still sturdy. Yes, that's the spirit, he exclaimed, the relief washing over him as her tentative optimism spread like sunlight breaking through clouds. The conversation transitioned into planning, tools laid out, sketches produced. A tangible excitement replaced the earlier tension. The collaborative spirit breathed life into the workshop. He marveled at her ideas while also guiding her to see beyond traditional confines of woodworking, feeling an old flame of creativity ignite within him. As the two began drafting sketches, David felt a burgeoning pride swell within. He was not just teaching her carving techniques. He was unraveling pieces of himself, reconciling tradition with innovation. He was crafting a bridge not only of wood but of understanding. Suddenly, a revelation struck him. The workshop was more than a physical space. It was a metaphor for their relationship, the crafting of something new from the raw materials of their past. Yet remained a nagging question. Could they nurture this newfound connection enough to face deeper challenges that loomed on the horizon? As they picked up their tools for the first time, David couldn't shake the looming uncertainty of whether this would be a true partnership or just a fleeting collaboration. Would they emerge stronger, or would the fractures remain as mere scars? Only by building together could he hope to find out. Would they wield their tools to forge not just a table, but a foundation for mutual respect and understanding? As the sun hung high in the sky, David and Emma immersed themselves in their work, the rhythmic sounds of woodworking filling the workshop. Each cut made by the saw, each stroke of the chisel echoed David's burgeoning belief in the collaboration. He was aware that what lay ahead was not merely crafting a table, it was about forging a deeper connection, rebuilding the frayed edges of their professional relationship, and fostering trust that had been lacking in the past. With every measured line sketched out, David observed Emma closely. She worked diligently, slicing through doubt with each careful movement. The way her brow furrowed in concentration reminded him of his younger self, so eager to absorb every lesson his elder had imparted. The same passion, the same desire to learn flickered in her eyes. It breathed new life into the dusty corners of his workshop, a testament to shared growth. "Look at this," she said, her voice rising with excitement as she presented a refined corner joint design. "That's brilliant, Emma. You've taken the traditional approach and added your own twist," he replied, genuinely impressed. Still, a whisper of apprehension coiled in his mind. Could this enthusiasm last? He wrestled with self-doubt, questioning his ability to mentor her through the inevitable hurdles. What if he couldn't translate his knowledge into something that would enable her to thrive? The thought knotted in his stomach, leaving a lingering uneasiness. As they carved, Emma began sharing snippets of her life, her dreams of starting a sustainable furniture line, an aspiration David hadn't anticipated. Her words poured forth, revealing layers of her personality he had never truly recognized. Here was a woman with ambition, creativity, and respect for craftsmanship that rivaled his own. In her vulnerability, David felt a flicker of recognition. He had once been battle-worn in search of understanding too. Something shifted within him. Emma's determination was a directive, nudging him out of the shadows where previous failures had anchored him. She was breathing new fire into him, stripping away his old reluctance. With each moment they shared, he realized he had been afraid of her potential, scared that he would be overshadowed in her brilliance. It was a truth he had to confront. "David," Emma said suddenly, drawing his attention back to the project, "can we make this design more sustainable? I've been thinking it could reflect a modern aesthetic without compromising on eco-friendly choices." Her suggestion ignited a spark of inspiration within him. Why hadn't he thought of that? As they discussed materials and techniques to lessen their environmental footprint, Ideas began to flow, a collaboration not just between two people, but a partnership fueled by shared values and respect for the world around them. Yet in the back of his mind, old grievances from their past still lingered. How could he fully embrace this new dynamic without being haunted by their earlier misunderstandings? The struggle between past failures and the desire for a fresh start weighed heavily on him. Would Emma be patient enough to navigate through his murky waters? As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting warm hues through the workshop, an unexpected resolve flooded David. He had to articulate more than just woodworking techniques. He had to convey his intent, his desire to heal. "Emma, can I share something?" He hesitated before continuing, the weight of the moment pressing upon him. "I want to work on being more transparent with you about my insecurities, my fears." She paused, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "I'm committed to this project with you and to making it meaningful. I'd really like to know your perspective. What are your thoughts on merging sustainability with craftsmanship?" He could feel the gravity of his request, the honesty exposing a vulnerability that made him feel raw yet liberated. As they approached a crucial moment, their eyes locked, and he sensed a doorway opening to a deeper conversation. But would their shared journey be powerful enough to address the complexities of both their past and future? In that moment, uncertainty loomed large. Could they sustain the groundbreaking trust they had begun to forge? Or would its foundations crack under the weight of old fears? David felt the tension build, aware that their next steps could alter the trajectory of not only the table they were crafting, but the very nature of their relationship. David took a steady breath, mentally bracing himself for the candid exploration that lay ahead. Emma's eyes seemed to silently prompt him forward, urging him to unearth the buried feelings that had for too long overshadowed their collaboration. "Every time I've set out to teach someone," he started, the words tumbling out with unexpected clarity, "it's felt as if I was handing over a piece of myself, my knowledge, my skills. But with you I've hesitated. I thought I would just be a presence in your shadow, and it terrified me." The admission hovered between them, fragile yet potent. Emma, processing his vulnerability, nodded with an understanding that made David's heart surge. She was not just a mentee. She was a partner, capable of enriching their shared vision with her creativity. "But you're not overshadowed by me," she said softly, her tone a mixture of reassurance and challenge. "I see a different kind of strength in you. Don't sell yourself short." Her words struck a chord deep inside him, a reminder that growth stems not from competition, but from collaboration. With each interaction, he felt the walls surrounding his past doubts slowly crumble. Perhaps this venture was not solely about sharing knowledge. It was about rediscovering his own place in the world. For the first time in a long while, the idea of opening himself up to another seemed less frightening and more exhilarating. "Let us see where this project goes," David replied, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within. Merging sustainability and craftsmanship could be transformative. "Let's challenge ourselves to make an impact." That promise recentered their focus, diverting attention from fears to possibilities. Together they plunged into a flurry of discussions about using reclaimed wood, natural finishes, and innovative designs that spoke of a modern ethos. In those moments, David relished the creativity unfolding before his eyes, his apprehension gradually giving way to optimism. However, a lingering worry gnawed at him. What if his insecurities resurfaced when faced with critical decisions? Just as they began sketching the designs, he found his hand trembling slightly, the familiar shadow of doubt offering a turbulent reminder of his past failures. "Are you all right?" Emma asked, her brow furrowing with concern. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just thinking about how we should execute this next step. We need a solid plan." The inadequacies crept in uninvited, but he pushed them down, shoving them aside with sheer will. This was not the time for self-doubt. They were in this venture together. As they collaborated, David embraced new techniques and ideas, pushing against the boundaries of his comfort zone. Emma introduced concepts like digital modeling and eco-friendly varnishes, sparking discussions that bristled with creativity. A part of him relished the growth, but another part wrestled with the fear of making mistakes. He felt as if every decision moving forward held immense weight, stakes higher than ever. "What about having a meeting with some local artisans?" Emma suggested during one particular brainstorming session, eyes glinting with enthusiasm. "They could offer insights, share their experiences. We could learn and innovate together." The idea resonated within him, but it also set off alarm bells. This would mean extending his reach into the community he had distanced himself from, past disappointments threatening to cloud his judgment. Sharing their work, opening it to scrutiny, felt daunting. But the thought of remaining stagnant was equally unsettling. "Let us do it," he found himself saying, every ounce of courage rallying behind the decision. By stepping into the local network, he was not only acknowledging his fears, but actively choosing to confront them. As they planned their meeting, excitement danced in the air, replacing the doubt that had once gripped him so tightly. Yet even as the exhilaration surged, David sensed an undercurrent of tension. What would happen when they opened up their project for discussion? Could he hold firm in his newfound resolve amidst the fear of judgment, or would the shadows of his past decisions rise to challenge him again? And more importantly, would his commitment to growth sustain the potential he now saw in both of them, or would they unravel at the first sign of adversity? The path ahead shimmered with promising possibilities, yet uncertainty lingered, casting its shadow even as they prepared for the next critical step. Would their burgeoning trust withstand the pressure of the outside world? David spent the next few days preparing for the meeting, his mind a whirlwind of potential outcomes and ever-present doubts. He meticulously gathered samples of materials they planned to present, aware that these choices represented not only their vision, but also a piece of his evolving self. Every reclaimed beam and eco-friendly finish felt like a representation of his growth, a transformation that was now visible to others, yet so deeply personal. In the quiet moments when he was alone with his thoughts, pressure built. The possibility of critique from seasoned artisans unmoored him and reminded him of previous failures. What if he stumbled over his words? What if they saw through him, unearthing the inadequacies he'd fought so hard to mask? Each worry coiled around his confidence, but he breathed through it, reminding himself that collaboration was a two-way street, one where mutual respect and shared knowledge thrived. Finally, they arrived at the local workshop, an unassuming building nestled among abandoned warehouses, filled with the scent of sawdust. He entered behind Emma, immediately struck by the warmth of the communal space, where craftsmanship and creativity flowed together like a natural force. The artisans greeted them with a mix of skepticism and curiosity, eyes assessing but not unkind. As the meeting progressed, David found himself sitting at the edge of the circle, listening. Each artisan spoke with pride about their craft, sharing stories of failures, setbacks, and the resilience that both drove and shaped them. With each tale, David felt a shift. These were not titans of industry, but people unguarded and real. Their struggles mirrored his own anxieties, and in that shared space, his feelings of inadequacy began to wane. Driven by an impulse, David joined the conversation. "When we talk about sustainability and craftsmanship," he said, the words surprising him as they flowed out, "it feels like we're not just preserving materials but also preserving our stories. Every piece we create carries history." His hands gestured, animated by newfound fervor. Vulnerability was concurrent with strength, he realized, as he continued discussing the challenges of integrating sustainable practices into traditional methods. Emma chimed in as well, backing his thoughts with insights and sparking deeper discussions among the artisans. David watched as their initial wariness transformed. Experienced craftspeople began to not only listen but engage, asking thoughtful questions and sharing their own experiences. As the conversation unfolded, David felt a burgeoning confidence blossom within him. Yet, a lingering doubt still gripped his mind. What if he had spoken too soon? Would they dismiss his thoughts as naive? It was a tightrope act, balancing between his desire for acceptance and the fear of rejection. But the reaction from the group was unexpected. They leaned closer, drawn into the idea of collaboration and creativity that transcended the fear of competition. When the meeting came to a close, David was buoyed yet apprehensive. They had exchanged ideas, yet standing before experienced artisans with their honest critiques still loomed like a storm cloud. What would they think once he laid out the prototype of their designs and the principles behind them? Would they see potential in what he was building alongside Emma? Or would they unravel his burgeoning confidence with hard truths? Walking back to the car, he noted how light and heavy his heart felt at once. "That went better than I expected," Emma said, and her smile sent ripples of warmth through him. David nodded, but fear clung tightly. Doubt circled, each one whispering that this newfound collaboration might shatter as quickly as it had begun. Would he be able to uphold the connections they had formed when the real challenge presented itself? As he buckled into the passenger seat, the looming questions clashed with the excitement of possibilities, propelling him into an uncertain future. What awaited them after revealing their work to the artisans? Could their shared strength hold firm against the impending scrutiny, or would David's fears tear the fragile bonds of their partnership apart? The answers beckoned, both enticing and terrifying, as they faced yet another pivotal moment of growth. As David sat in the passenger seat, his thoughts raced, entangled in a mix of anticipation and fear. He felt more exposed than ever. The meeting had opened doors within him, revealing vulnerabilities he often kept tightly closed. Emma's affirming words began to fade into white noise as his mind conjured scenarios of disbelief from the artisans when he finally presented their prototype. They drove through the rusty streets lined with fading murals and neglected storefronts, reminders of how dreams could dwindle if not nurtured. He peered out the window, grappling with a palpable sense of urgency to prove himself not just to the artisans but to a more profound part of his identity that still questioned its worth. "What I said in there," he began, uncertainty creeping into his voice. "Do you think it made sense? Or did I just sound like someone trying to fit in?" Emma glanced over, her expression serious yet gentle. "You spoke from the heart, David. That's what matters most. Don't underestimate the power of genuine passion," she encouraged. Yet, her words weren't a glass of water to a thirsty man. They were more like a hand offered to a man on a tightrope. He realized he needed to pull himself up. His confidence could not solely rely on her support. As they arrived at his workshop, David felt the looming challenge awaken the intensity inside him. The space was bare yet charged with possibility, a canvas waiting for color. He had already redesigned the workspace several times, but now it felt different. Each item, including the modest drafting table and storage of salvaged materials, spoke of a budding identity he was forging. Engaging with the pieces around him, he noticed the small defects: a chipped edge, an uneven surface. They echoed his own imperfections. Yet it was through these imperfections that character emerged. David might once have allowed them to represent failure, but now he realized they told stories similar to those shared by the artisans. Drawing on that insight, he began sketching another prototype, driven by a newfound determination to align craftsmanship with sustainability. He envisioned the components, each one a collaboration of old and new, reclaimed wood intertwined with modern lines, formulated into something beautiful yet grounded. The sketches flowed, and as they did, a sense of purpose began to solidify within him. Midway through the design, doubt still gnawed at the edges of his enthusiasm. What if he was missing a crucial element? What if the artisans rejected not just the design but also the spirit of collaboration they had just started to cultivate? He paused, desperation pooling in his chest. "Focus," he whispered to himself. "Don't back down now." It was imperative to trust in the evolution of both his ideas and himself. That meant embracing the discomfort instead of fleeing from it. He envisioned the critiques not as failures but as invaluable insights to refine his vision further. As night began to settle, casting long shadows in the workshop, David felt a stirring inside, a competitive fire mingled with gratitude. Their recent meeting had opened a path he couldn't afford to neglect. There was a knock on the door. Startled David, breaking his focus. He looked up, wondering who could be visiting at this hour. The air crackled with both anticipation and dread. Was it an artisan ready to critique him head-on? Or perhaps a friend bringing distraction when he craved clarity? With hesitant steps he approached the door, uncertain if he was ready to face whatever awaited him on the other side. What awaited him? Would it strengthen his resolve, or would it bring forth new challenges that could shatter his confidence once more? The tension mirrored the unfolding story of his life, each encounter another significant chapter about to unfold. Tentatively, David turned the knob and opened the door, his heart pounding against his ribs. The dim light from his workshop spilled out into the hallway, revealing a figure standing just beyond the threshold. It was Mara, one of the artisans he'd recently met. Her presence sparked a whirlwind of emotions within him: excitement, fear, and a glimmer of hope. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice steady yet cautious, eyes searching his. "Sure, of course," he replied, stepping aside to let her enter. The workshop felt suddenly smaller, a crucible where ideas and emotions collided. As she stepped inside, David felt the weight of her scrutiny. She moved toward the sketches scattered across his drafting table, her expression unreadable, absorbed in examining his work. "I wanted to talk about what you said at the meeting," Mara began, her fingers tracing the contours of his designs. "You mentioned collaboration and sustainability. Struck a chord with me." David's heart quickened. Perhaps this was an opportunity to explore his vision more deeply. "I believe we can create something meaningful together," he said, his voice firm. "Something that represents all of us. I've been working on a new prototype that combines reclaimed materials with modern design." Mara cut him off, her eyes sharpening. "But why do you think they'll want to work with you?" Her question hung in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. David's pulse raced at the challenge, a mixture of indignation and self-doubt. "Because I understand the value of what we're creating," he replied, searching for credibility. "And I'm here to learn to adapt. I'm not just imposing my ideas, I want us to have a dialogue." "Dialogue," she echoed, crossing her arms. "You mean more than just a sales pitch?" "Exactly. This isn't just about profit for me. It's about integrity and authenticity." He took a breath, galvanizing his thoughts. "I've struggled with feeling out of place, like I don't belong. But that's exactly why I want to be part of this process. To bring something fresh, to give voice to all the unheard stories." A flicker of understanding crossed Mara's face, but it was quickly replaced by skepticism. "That's a noble sentiment, but how will you handle the inevitable critiques? What will you do when your designs don't resonate with us?" David hesitated. The question unsettled him, plunging him into the depths of his deepest fears. "I suppose I'll have to confront those critiques head-on," he admitted, feeling vulnerable yet compelled to be honest. "I need to learn from them, adapt and grow. I can't hide from the process, I need to engage with it fully." The tension in the workshop thickened, alive with unspoken challenges. Mara studied him intently, then nodded slowly. "Honesty and resilience, that's a start. But if you really want to be part of this community, you need to prove yourself. You need to create and iterate in the face of doubt and rejection." Her words fueled a fire inside him, igniting an urgent resolve. "I will," he vowed, the promise resonating within him. "I'll face whatever comes my way. This is my chance to not only build something beautiful, but also to discover who I'm meant to be in the process." Just as David felt a flicker of confidence surge, a commotion erupted outside the workshop. Shouts and laughter spilled into the quiet space, echoing down the corridor. Both he and Mara turned toward the sound, their moment of connection disrupted. "What is happening out there?" she asked, concern etching her brow. David felt a sudden swell of anxiety. The noise could also indicate a challenge, an unforeseen obstacle to overcome. "Let us find out," he said, taking a step toward the door, his heart racing once more. The feeling of anticipation returned, magnified by the clash of enthusiasm and trepidation. Whatever awaited them on the other side of that door could change everything. Would it bring clarity, or plunge him into chaos once more? The moment appealed to the angles of their professional relationship. Each step toward the noise could unveil deeper insights or further complicate their journey. David embraced the determinant shift, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. As David stepped out of his workshop, the noise washed over him like a wave, boisterous yet invigorating, familiar yet foreign. The corridor was alive with artisans gathered around a hastily organized display. A group of them was showcasing their work, animated laughter punctuating the air as they engaged in discussions. Yet amid the merriment, David couldn't shake the feeling that this was a subtle test, an initiation into a community that demanded more than mere participation. It required connection. Mara followed closely behind, her keen gaze darting from one conversation to the next. David's heart raced, uncertain whether to embrace the chaos or shrink back into the comfort of his workshop walls. This burst of creativity, he realized, was the very essence of collaboration he had spoken about. Yet, he found himself struggling to wade through the interactions like an outsider. "Let us mingle," Mara suggested, pushing him subtly toward a small group clustered around a vibrant display of handcrafted items. "You need to get your name out there." The words resonated deeply within him, a chance to transform his fear into understanding. David took a deep breath and stepped forward, forcing himself to exchange greetings with those who were, in his eyes, seasoned veterans of this environment. "Hi, I'm David," he managed, his voice firm yet laced with trepidation. Each introduction felt like a small victory, yet self-doubt crept in with every new face. Was he truly ready to join their ranks, to share his vision among such skilled artisans? As the group began discussing their techniques and inspirations, David could feel the churning of anxiety in his stomach. Was his desire for collaboration merely a naive aspiration? A woman with paint-stained hands caught his eye as she gestured wildly while explaining her latest project. "You have to put your real self into your work. Otherwise it doesn't resonate. I remember a time when I thought my pieces were finished until someone pointed out what was missing. It was a reflection of me I hadn't seen." Her honesty struck him. Reflection, David murmured, almost to himself, the concept echoing within the limits of his mind. He was searching not just for aesthetic value but a way to embed his own story into every piece. If he were to contribute meaningfully, it would require a level of vulnerability he had not yet embraced. Suddenly, Mara stood beside him, a knowing look in her eyes. "You're thinking, aren't you?" "I am," he confessed, a small spark of recognition igniting. "And I realize I have to tackle this head-on. These people, they're open. Maybe their critiques aren't obstacles but pathways to refinement." "Exactly," she answered, her smile genuine. "Every critique opens a door if you let it. But that means you also need to show your work. Share what you believe in. You won't see growth unless you put it all on the table." The thought resonated deep within him, stirring a sense of purpose. As conversations flowed around him, David committed to embracing this chaotic setting, to no longer stand on the fringes but become an active participant. His eyes scanned the vibrant works around him, absorbing their stories and found inspirations. Perhaps it was time to share his prototypes, his visions, not as finalized products but as works in progress alive with potential and imperfection. Just as he gathered the courage to suggest a collaborative experiment among the group, a sharp voice cut through, shattering the burgeoning confidence. "You think you can just waltz in here and have us trust your ideas? You're a novice. It's insulting how naive you are." David felt the air shift, tension wrapping around him like ice. He looked toward the source of the voice, a tall man whose fierce gaze assessed him with contempt. No longer could David ignore the challenge laid before him. It was time to rise, to assert his place in this community, or retreat into obscurity. But was he ready to confront this critical voice? Or would fear stifle his emergence? The moment had come to decide if he would take the risk for growth or fade silently back into the shadows. Taking a deep breath, David squared his shoulders, feeling the warmth of determination filling his chest. He could sense Mara watching him, her presence a reassuring anchor against the turbulence of self-doubt that threatened to engulf him. "Actually," David began, his voice steady, emerging from the quiet resolve he had built during the past several weeks, "I'm not here just to showcase a finished product. I want to learn, to grow, and in turn, share my process and passion for woodworking and sustainable design." His response hung in the air, challenging yet diplomatic. The tall man's expression morphed from scorn to curiosity. Some of the other artisans turned their heads, intrigued. "You think sharing your process will convince us to invest in your vision?" He sneered, his tone dripping with condescension. "Investing us isn't just about money," David replied, stepping forward into the circle, his heart racing yet emboldened. "It's about trust and authenticity. I'm here to collaborate and to open a dialogue about craftsmanship that resonates with real stories. I want it to reflect not just my journey but our collective experience." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as David's words settled in, giving rise to a different kind of energy. The same artisans he once viewed as on a higher pedestal seemed to ponder the truth in his message. "Why not show us what you're working on then?" the tall man challenged, with a slight grin that felt more like a dare than encouragement. "Let us see if you can back up those words with real craftsmanship." David focused on the challenge, feeling the adrenaline surge through him. "Absolutely," he asserted, excitement coursing through him. "I'd love to share our prototype and what it stands for." He gestured toward the workshop, inviting Emma and even the skeptics to join in the experience. With an energy bridging apprehension and purpose, he led the way back to his creative sanctuary, feeling Mara support him by walking shoulder to shoulder, rallying confidence from their collaboration. Once inside the workshop, David could see Emma's face lighting up, filled with pride and anticipation. "This is our merge of traditional techniques and modern design," he began, gesturing toward the sketches and reclaimed materials they had selected. "It symbolizes stories woven into these pieces, highlighting their essence and potential." As he spoke about the materials, the design choices, and the ethos behind their work, David's voice grew stronger, fueled by the enthusiasm radiating from Emma. He noticed the artisans leaning closer, nodding in recognition as the connection between past and present resonated in the air. David could almost touch their budding openness. "I admit," the tall man said, slowly unfolding his reluctance like a flower braving the sun, "I was skeptical. I didn't see the potential at first glance. But presenting this way, you've opened a perspective I hadn't considered. It's about all of us participating in creating something profound," David declared, fueled by a newfound conviction. "Every blemish tells a story. Every imperfection holds value. Together we can forge something grounded in tradition, yet rich with innovation." The nods turned into murmurs of agreement, the initial skepticism waning into a collaborative spirit. David's heart swelled. This was what he had long desired, a community steeped in shared visions and collective journeys. Leaving the workshop that evening, he felt lighter, liberated from expectations that once shackled him. His participation evolved from that of a lonely artist to an integral part of a creative community. He had not only accepted his insecurities but woven them into the very fabric of his artistry, creating a space where he belonged. David's relationship with Emma deepened. They fostered not just skills but mutual respect, pooling their diverse backgrounds into a vibrant tapestry of craftsmanship. He finally understood that their bond could effortlessly merge the past and the future, his legacy of struggles and her innovative aspirations. Months later, David stood at a local artisan market, showcasing their collaborative work, a range of sustainable furniture that celebrated imperfections while highlighting stories etched into the wood. Faces lit up as people engaged, curious about their approach. It was no longer just about him, nor just about Emma. Their efforts were recognized as a testament to a broader community of creators sharing their paths and struggles. An artisan approached, indicating sincere interest in a piece they had created together. And at that moment, David realized he was seen not just for his craftsmanship, but for the meaning behind it. He exchanged glances with Emma across the tent, a silent acknowledgement that needed no words. He had achieved fulfillment, crafted not just wood, but relationships, understanding, and a bond that both honored his past and embraced the potential of the future. As evening drew its curtain, one truth crystallized. The transformation had been complete. David had conquered his fears, demonstrated resilience, and built himself a solid confidence while earning the recognition he once thought elusive. His journey was reflective of an authentic American aspiration, conquering doubts and crafting a legacy that was uniquely his own. You need to subscribe now to witness emotional journeys like this. Don't let it pass you by. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us share these stories. Comment below your reactions and before you knew it theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with 5 friends who are on paths of transformation. They need to see this.